The unit was military-grade but personally owned, perfectly balanced and calibrated through hundreds of hours of practice. Tomorrow, Admiral Hargrove would be watching, and whether Reeves liked it or not, Maya Reynolds was going to be there, ready to serve her country in whatever capacity was required. She'd spent months being invisible, accepting disrespect, tolerating humiliation. But tomorrow was different. Tomorrow, she had a feeling her country might need her to be more than just an equipment technician. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Real professionals don't boast about their skills, Maya. They just perform when performance matters. Tomorrow, performance would matter. And Commander Reeves was about to learn that some people's silence wasn't weakness. It was discipline, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. The morning of the demonstration dawned clear and cool, perfect conditions for night operations training that would continue into the evening. Maya arrived at the equipment room before anyone else, as usual. But today, she carried an extra case alongside her standard toolkit. She set up her maintenance station at the edge of the operations center, just as Reeves had ordered, but her eyes kept drifting to the obstacle course that would be used for the night demonstration. By 1,800 hours, Naval Special Warfare's best operators had assembled. The competition was elite. Master Chief Petty Officer Thompson, who'd won 3 Navy combat readiness competitions, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, fresh back from specialized training, Senior Chief Petty Officer Davis, who'd served 2 tours as a night operations specialist. These were operators whose entire careers revolved around moving and fighting in darkness. Reeves strutted around like a peacock, inspecting equipment and barking orders. "Remember, gentlemen, we're representing the entire command today. I expect nothing less than perfection." At 1,957 hours, an armored SUV pulled up to the compound. Admiral Thomas Hargrove stepped out, and every sailor snapped to attention. He was taller than Maya had expected, maybe 6'2", with silver hair and a weathered face that spoke of decades making impossible decisions. His chest displayed ribbons that read like a history of American naval operations over the past 30 years. But what struck Maya most were his eyes. They swept across the assembled operators with professional assessment, then landed on her. For just a moment, so brief that anyone else would have missed it, something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Surprise? She couldn't tell. "At ease," Hargrove said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that came from leading men through hell and bringing them home again. "I'm here to observe, not interfere. Please continue with your demonstration." The competition began with a progressive series of night operations challenges. One by one, Naval Special Warfare's finest donned their night vision goggles and attempted to navigate the specialized course. The conditions were challenging. Artificial smoke had been deployed to reduce visibility, and the lighting was designed to create problematic contrasts that would test even experienced operators. Master Chief Thompson went first. His movements were confident as he navigated through the first obstacles, but when he reached the identification segment, where thermal signatures needed to be properly distinguished between friendly and hostile, he hesitated. His final time was respectable, but he had misidentified 2 critical targets. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez followed. His navigation was flawless, but when required to quickly transition from night vision to thermal and back again, he fumbled with the equipment. Precious seconds ticked away as he struggled to maintain his situational awareness during the transition. Each miss brought a tighter frown to Reeves' face. This was supposed to be a showcase, not a demonstration of equipment challenges. Senior Chief Davis stepped up for his attempt, and Maya found herself unconsciously analyzing his technique, the way he held the optical systems, his failure to properly adjust the gain as he moved between differently lit sections. His final score was mediocre at best. "Challenging conditions," Admiral Hargrove observed mildly, but Maya caught the undertone. He wasn't impressed. As the exercises continued, with operator after operator failing to achieve the precision and speed that would truly honor their distinguished visitor, Maya noticed something else. Admiral Hargrove's attention kept drifting to her. Not obviously. The man was too professional for that, but she'd spent enough time being invisible to recognize when someone was quietly observing her. Finally, after 8 attempts and 0 truly impressive performances, Reeves was sweating despite the cool evening air. "Sir, these are exceptionally difficult conditions," he began, gesturing toward the smoke and variable lighting. "The thermal contrasts are... I've seen operators work in conditions that would make tonight look like a sunny day at the beach." Hargrove interrupted gently. The issue isn't the environment. The rebuke was polite, but devastating. Reeves' face went red, and Maya could see him scrambling for a way to salvage the situation. That's when Hargrove looked directly at her for the first time. Young lady, you've been watching very intently. What's your assessment of the operational challenges? Every head in the command center turned to stare at Maya. Reeves looked like he might have a stroke. Sir, she's just equipment maintenance. She doesn't. I asked her, Commander. Hargrove's tone was still mild, but it carried the weight of command that made Reeves shut his mouth immediately. Maya stood slowly, her heart pounding but her voice steady. 3 primary issues, sir. First, they're using standard gain settings across all zones instead of pre-adjusting for each lighting section. Second, the smoke is reflecting their infrared illuminators back at them, creating false signatures. Third, they're switching between optical systems sequentially instead of using complementary information from both simultaneously. A murmur ran through the assembled operators. This was technical expertise that most of them had never heard from anyone below the rank of senior chief. Reeves looked like he'd been slapped. Admiral Hargrove nodded slowly. Interesting assessment. Very detailed. He paused, studying her face. What's your name, sailor? Petty Officer 3rd Class Maya Reynolds, sir. Well, Petty Officer Reynolds, since you seem to understand the conditions so well, perhaps you'd like to demonstrate proper technique. The suggestion hit the command center like a thunderbolt. Reeves started to sputter an objection, but Hargrove's raised hand silenced him immediately. Maya felt every eye boring into her. This was the moment her mother had prepared her for without either of them knowing it. The moment when quiet competence would be tested against loud assumptions. I'd be honored, sir, she said quietly. Maya walked to her equipment case with the deliberate calm of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. As she opened it, revealing the customized PVS-31s with their pristine housing and specialized attachments, a hush fell over the command center. This wasn't standard military equipment. This was a precision instrument, clearly personal, clearly expensive, and clearly maintained by someone who understood exactly what they were doing. I'll be damned, whispered Master Chief Thompson. That's a custom job. Reeves found his voice. Sir, I have to protest. She's not certified on specialized night operations equipment. There are safety protocols. Commander, Admiral Hargrove's voice cut through the evening air like a blade. I've made my decision. Stand down. Maya settled the night vision unit onto her helmet mount, and immediately, every experienced operator in the room could see the difference. Her adjustments were textbook perfect. But more than that, they were natural. She wasn't thinking about proper settings. Proper settings were simply who she was. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the ambient temperature on her skin, listening to the subtle sounds that told her everything she needed to know about the conditions. When she opened them, her breathing had already settled into the rhythm her mother had taught her. Inhale, natural pause, execute. Through the night vision, the obstacle course looked challenging but navigable. But Maya wasn't seeing just obstacles. She was seeing heat signatures, ambient light patterns, the exact path where technology and skill would intersect. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Don't move where it's dark. Move where it's going to be illuminated. Maya entered the course, and immediately everyone watching the monitors could see they were witnessing something extraordinary. She didn't move like someone navigating through darkness. She moved like someone who could see perfectly. Where other operators had hesitated at transitions between light zones, she adjusted her equipment on the fly without breaking stride. Where others had struggled to identify thermal signatures, she categorized them instantly. Where others had slowed to ensure safety, she accelerated with complete confidence. When she reached the shooting portion of the course, the difference became even more pronounced. Required to engage targets while maintaining night vision discipline, Maya handled the Barrett 50 caliber rifle like an extension of herself. Each shot found its mark with precision that seemed impossible under the conditions. 3 minutes and 42 seconds later, Maya completed the course. For a moment, absolute silence filled the command center. Then, someone monitoring the scoring system began shouting numbers back to the control room. Perfect target identification! 0 penalties! New course record by 1 minute and 27 seconds! The silence stretched another heartbeat, then exploded into chaos. Operators were talking all at once, asking how that was possible, demanding to know who she really was. But Maya barely heard them. She was watching Admiral Hargrove, who had stood up from his chair and was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Reeves looked like he'd been hit by a truck. That was just luck. One run doesn't mean... That demonstration, Admiral Hargrove interrupted, his voice carrying across the command center with absolute authority, tells me everything I need to know. He stepped forward, and when he spoke again, his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Lieutenant Maya Reynolds, formerly of Naval Special Reconnaissance, and the primary night operations specialist responsible for saving 27 American lives during Operation Broken Tide. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every person in that room knew about Broken Tide, the hostage rescue mission with a 32% casualty rate. The operation that had become legend in military circles. And they'd been mocking its hero for months. Broken Tide, someone whispered. Jesus Christ, she's the Phantom. Maya remained perfectly still, but her hands were trembling slightly. She'd spent 2 years trying to bury that part of her life, trying to find peace in maintenance work and invisible service. Now it was all coming back. Admiral Hargrove continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute truth. During Operation Broken Tide, Lieutenant Reynolds provided critical intelligence on enemy positions in total darkness while hostile forces had us pinned down. She navigated through 5 kilometers of enemy territory, often crawling within meters of enemy positions, to give us real-time thermal intelligence that allowed the rescue team to extract the hostages. Reeves had gone completely pale. Around the command center, operators were putting pieces together, remembering every joke they'd made, every dismissive comment, every time they treated her like she didn't belong. The psychological cost, Hargrove continued, was significant. Taking those kinds of risks, knowing that a single mistake would mean not just your death, but the death of the hostages. Lieutenant Reynolds requested transfer to a non-combat role. She wanted to continue serving her country, but in a way that allowed her to rebuild herself. Maya finally removed her night vision goggles. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but clear enough for everyone to hear. I didn't want recognition. I just wanted to continue serving in a way that let me sleep at night. Why didn't you tell us? Petty Officer Collins asked. And for the first time since she'd known him, his voice held genuine respect instead of mockery. Because past achievements don't determine present worth, Maya replied. I wanted to be valued for who I am now, not who I used to be. Admiral Hargrove nodded approvingly. That's exactly the attitude that made her exceptional in the first place. Humility combined with extraordinary skill. The transformation in the group was complete. These operators finally understood that the quiet woman they'd dismissed possessed combat experience that exceeded their collective training. More than that, they understood they'd been privileged to work alongside genuine heroism and had been too blind to see it. Commander Reeves stood frozen, realizing that his career had just taken a hit from which it might never recover. He'd spent months humiliating a decorated war hero, and he'd done it in front of witnesses. But Maya wasn't looking at Reeves anymore. She was looking at the operators who had begun approaching her with genuine respect, asking technical questions, seeking guidance from someone they finally recognized as their superior in every way that mattered. Her performance had been perfect, but more importantly, it had revealed the character of everyone present. Within hours, word of the demonstration had spread throughout the Naval Special Warfare community like wildfire. The story grew with each telling, but for once, the embellishments didn't diminish the truth. They simply couldn't match it. By evening mess, every sailor on the base knew that they'd been sharing their facility with a genuine war hero. Captain Wilson requested an immediate meeting with all personnel involved in the morning's events. The conference room felt smaller than usual as Reeves, Maya, Admiral Hargrove, and the witnessing operators filed in. Wilson's expression was carefully neutral, but experienced sailors could read the storm brewing behind his eyes. Commander Reeves, Wilson began without preamble, I've received several reports about your conduct regarding Petty Officer Reynolds. Would you care to explain why you've been publicly humiliating a decorated combat veteran? Reeves's career flashed before his eyes. Sir, her personnel file didn't indicate. I had no knowledge of her combat experience. Her file, Admiral Hargrove interjected, was classified for operational security reasons. But that doesn't explain why you thought it was appropriate to mock any sailor under your command, regardless of their background. Wilson leaned forward. Commander, I've also received reports that you threatened Petty Officer Reynolds' career and suggested she be removed from her position. Is this accurate? The room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Reeves knew he was finished. Yes, sir. I made those statements. On what grounds? I believe she was unqualified for her position. Petty Officer Collins, who'd been one of Reeves's most enthusiastic supporters in mocking Maya, cleared his throat. Sir, if I may, Commander Reeves never gave Petty Officer Reynolds a chance to demonstrate her abilities. None of us did. We assumed that because she was quiet and worked in maintenance, she was somehow lesser. The admission took courage, and Maya felt a grudging respect for the young sailor who was essentially confessing his own prejudice to save what remained of Reeves's dignity. Captain Wilson turned to Maya. Petty Officer Reynolds, why didn't you report this harassment through proper channels? Maya had been dreading this question. Sir, I was trying to serve quietly. I hoped that if I did my job well and stayed out of the way, the situation would resolve itself. That's not how the Navy works, sailor. When you're being mistreated, you have an obligation to speak up. Not just for yourself, but for every sailor who might face similar treatment in the future. Admiral Hargrove spoke up. Captain, if I may, Lieutenant Reynolds' approach to dealing with adversity has always been unique. During Broken Tide, she volunteered for the most dangerous position, provided critical intelligence for the entire operation, and then refused accommodation because she said she was just doing her job. She's never been comfortable with recognition. Nevertheless, Wilson continued, this situation is unacceptable. Commander Reeves, you're relieved of your position as team leader effective immediately. You'll report to the XO for reassignment and counseling. Your fitness report will reflect today's revelations. Reeves nodded stiffly. His career wasn't over, but it had just taken a devastating hit that would follow him for years. Petty Officer Reynolds, Wilson continued, I'm recommending you for immediate promotion to Petty Officer 2nd Class and reassignment to a position more appropriate for your experience level. We also need to discuss correcting your service record to properly reflect your combat experience. Sir, Maya said carefully, I requested the transfer to maintenance work. I'm content with my current position. Content or not, the Navy has invested significant resources in your training, and we're not utilizing your capabilities effectively. Wilson turned to Hargrove. Admiral, do you have any recommendations? Hargrove smiled slightly. Actually, I do. The Naval Special Warfare Advanced Training Group has been looking for experienced personnel to develop new protocols for night operations. Someone with Lieutenant Reynolds' combination of combat experience and technical ability would be invaluable. The suggestion hung in the air. It would mean leaving her current assignment, leaving the quiet maintenance work she'd found peaceful, and returning to a world that revolved around precision operations. But it would also mean helping other operators develop skills that might save their lives. Maya looked around the room at the faces of sailors who'd spent months dismissing her, who now looked at her with respect and something approaching awe. She thought about her mother's lessons, about service, about using your gifts to help others. I'd be honored to consider such an assignment, sir. As the meeting concluded, sailors filed out quietly, many stopping to offer Maya personal apologies. Collins lingered longest. Ma'am, I owe you more than an apology. I was wrong about everything, and I'm ashamed of how I acted. Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse. We all make assumptions, Collins. The question is what we do when we discover we're wrong. I'd like to learn from you if you're willing to teach. Everyone deserves a second chance to prove their character, she replied. Including me. That evening, as Maya packed her equipment one last time in the maintenance room, she reflected on the day's events. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new opportunities to serve. But tonight, she was content knowing that sometimes the most important battles were won not with weapons, but with quiet dignity and the courage to be exactly who you were meant to be. 3 weeks later, Maya found herself at the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Training Command in Coronado, California. Walking through the halls of the facility, the building hummed with focused energy. This was where the military's most elite operators came to master the art of operating in the world's most hostile environments. Commander Alicia Westbrook, the unit's training director, greeted her personally. A compact woman with intense eyes and calloused hands that spoke of decades in special operations. She had read Maya's complete file, including the classified portions that had remained hidden at her previous assignment. Petty Officer Reynolds, she said, using Maya's newly reinstated rank, "I'll be honest with you. When Admiral Hargrove recommended you for this position, I was skeptical. Teaching advanced night operations isn't just about being able to navigate in darkness. It's about understanding how to transfer complex skills to operators who may never have your natural ability." They walked through the facility, past indoor ranges where operators practiced with equipment that represented the cutting edge of military technology. Through soundproof glass, Maya watched instructors working with small groups, demonstrating techniques that she recognized from her mother's training and her own combat experience. "Your assignment," Westbrook continued, "will be developing curriculum for what we're calling the Advanced Sensory Integration Program. Too many of our elite operators have excellent technical skills, but lack the intuitive understanding of how to merge different sensory inputs under stress. Based on your combat record and your unique approach to optical systems, we think you might have insights that could benefit the entire special operations community." Maya paused at a window overlooking a nighttime training area where operators were attempting to navigate a complex urban environment. She could see immediately what they were doing wrong. Relying too heavily on a single system, fighting their equipment instead of working with it, focusing on the technology instead of the environment. "Permission to ask a question, ma'am?" "Of course." "Are we training them to be better at using technology or better at understanding their environment?" Westbrook stopped walking. The question cut to the heart of something she'd been wrestling with throughout her career. What's the difference? A technician focuses on mastering the equipment. An operator focuses on completing the mission. Sometimes that requires technology. Sometimes it requires recognizing when technology is a limitation. The difference is everything. For the first time since they'd met, Westbrook smiled. "Admiral Hargrove said you'd have a unique perspective. I think he undersold it." Over the following weeks, Maya threw herself into her new role with the same quiet intensity she brought to equipment maintenance. But now, instead of cleaning optical systems, she was developing training protocols that emphasized environmental awareness alongside technological proficiency. Her first class consisted of 16 operators, all experienced professionals who'd been selected for advanced training. Chief Petty Officer James Ramirez, recently returned from deployment, looked skeptical as Maya introduced herself. "I'm not here to teach you how to use night vision," Maya began. "You already know how to use night vision. I'm here to teach you how to see in darkness." She led them through exercises that had nothing to do with equipment at first: navigating by touch, identifying objects by sound, understanding how ambient temperature affects perception. Every lesson built toward a holistic understanding of operating in low-light conditions. "Technology is a tool, not a solution," she explained during one session. "In combat, your NODs might fail, your thermal might glitch, your batteries might die. But if you understand how to read your environment with all your senses, you'll never be truly blind." Chief Ramirez approached her after the third day of training. "Ma'am, this isn't like any night ops course I've ever taken." "Good. How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, it's harder than I expected. You're making us think about things that most instructors never mention. Like yesterday, when you had us train without any equipment, just using moonlight and environmental cues. I've been in the teams for 12 years and I've never approached it that way." Maya nodded. "That's the point. Anyone can learn to use night vision, but knowing how to operate when that technology fails, that's what separates good operators from exceptional ones." Word of her unconventional teaching methods spread quickly through the special operations community. Other instructors began requesting copies of her curriculum. Senior officers started attending her sessions as observers. But the real validation came from her students. Operators who completed her program didn't just perform better in equipment evaluations. They made better decisions under pressure. They adapted more quickly when systems failed. They carried themselves with the quiet confidence that came from knowing they were prepared for whatever their country might ask of them. Late one evening, as Maya reviewed performance metrics from her latest class, she found a handwritten note that had been slipped under her office door. "Ma'am, my mother always said that the best teachers are the ones who change how you think, not just what you know. Thank you for helping me understand that being an operator is about more than being a weapon. It's about being a complete sensor, eyes, ears, mind, and instinct working together. P.O.1 Olivia Morgan." Maya smiled, recognizing the name. Olivia had transferred to Coronado specifically to take her course, having been one of the few people at her previous command who'd recognized there was more to Maya than met the eye. As she turned off her office lights and headed to her quarters, Maya reflected on the strange path that had brought her here. From coastal training with her mother, through the hell of Operation Broken Tide, to the quiet service of equipment maintenance, and now to shaping the next generation of special operators. Each phase had taught her something different about service, about sacrifice, about the responsibility that came with specialized skills. But perhaps the most important lesson was one her mother had taught her years ago. True strength wasn't about how much technology you could deploy, but about knowing when technology was necessary and when human intuition was wiser. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, new opportunities to serve. But tonight, she was content knowing that her mother's lessons lived on in every operator she trained, and that sometimes the most important operations were the ones conducted not with cutting-edge equipment, but with finely honed human senses. 6 months into her assignment at the Advanced Training Command, Maya received an unexpected visitor. She was reviewing training schedules in her office when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ma'am, there's an Admiral Hargrove here to see you." Admiral Hargrove entered with the same quiet authority she remembered from their last meeting, but now his face carried a smile of genuine pride. "Petty Officer Reynolds, I hope you don't mind the unannounced visit. I was in the area and wanted to see how you were settling in." They walked through the facility together, observing classes in session. In one room, operators were practicing what Maya called systems failure adaptation, exercises that required them to accomplish objectives when their primary and secondary optical systems unexpectedly shut down. "Your program has generated quite a bit of discussion in Pentagon circles," Hargrove observed. "Initial reports suggest that operators completing your training show 60% better adaptation to equipment failure compared to traditional night operations programs." Maya watched through the observation window as one of her students, faced with a simulated NVG failure, immediately switched to using environmental cues she'd taught them, maintaining mission effectiveness where others might have been completely compromised. "Sir, I've been thinking about something you said at our last meeting about the cost of combat and choosing when to rely on technology and when to rely on yourself." "Go on." "I think I spent years believing that my value as an operator was tied to my ability to use advanced systems. But what I'm learning here is that my real value might be in teaching others that technology is only as good as the human using it." Hargrove nodded slowly. "Broken Tide was necessary, Maya. What you did saved lives. But you're right. Teaching operators to make better decisions might save even more lives in the long run." They paused outside a classroom where Chief Ramirez was leading a discussion about sensory integration. The conversation was complex, nuanced, exactly the kind of thinking that separated professional operators from mere technicians. "There's something else," Hargrove continued. "The Navy is considering expanding your program fleet-wide. They want to integrate your sensory adaptation protocols into all special operations training. The implications are significant." The news hit Maya immediately. Her mother's lessons, learned on the Maine coast, refined through combat experience, and tempered by the wisdom that came from understanding the true cost of operational failure, would become part of how America trained its warriors. "Sir, that's an incredible responsibility." "Yes, it is, but you've already proven you can handle incredible responsibilities. The question is whether you're ready to step into a larger role. We're talking about a promotion to lieutenant junior grade, an assignment to head a new department, advanced sensory integration and environmental adaptation." That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment staring at the framed photo of her mother that had traveled with her from post to post. She had died 1 year after Broken Tide, proud of her daughter, but worried about the psychological weight she carried from that operation. Now Maya wondered what she'd think about this new opportunity. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Olivia Morgan. "Ma'am, heard the news about the program expansion. My entire team is requesting your training. You're changing how we think about being operators." More messages followed. Operators from her classes sharing stories about how her teaching had influenced their decisions in the field. Officers reporting improved performance from personnel who'd completed her program. Even international allies expressing interest in her curriculum. The equipment technician had found her true calling, and it wasn't behind a maintenance bench or even behind night vision goggles. It wasn't helping others see clearly, in every sense of the word. The next morning, Maya found herself back at the nighttime training course, where she'd first demonstrated her abilities months earlier. But instead of navigating the course herself, she stood behind a group of young operators, teaching them to read their environment, understand their equipment, and most importantly, understand themselves. "Remember," she told them, "technology isn't about replacing your senses. It's about extending them. Your night vision is meaningless if you don't understand what you're seeing. Your thermal is useless if you can't interpret the signatures." A young ensign raised his hand. "Ma'am, how do you know when to trust your equipment and when to trust your instincts in a high-stress situation?" Maya smiled, hearing her mother's voice in the question. "You prepare beforehand by developing both. You train your instincts through experience and knowledge. You master your equipment through practice and understanding. When the pressure hits, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall back on your level of preparation." As the class continued, Maya noticed movement at the edge of the training area. Commander Reeves was standing there, apparently having traveled to Coronado specifically to see her. When the training session ended, he approached hesitantly. "Petty Officer Reynolds, I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I was hoping we could talk." They walked to a quiet area overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Reeves looked older, humbled by the events that had cost him his position and damaged his career. "I came to apologize," he said simply, "not just for how I treated you, but for what I failed to learn from you. I spent months working alongside someone who could have made me a better officer, a better leader, a better person. Instead, I let my prejudices blind me to an opportunity that will never come again." Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse. "We all make mistakes, Commander. The question is what we do with the lessons they teach us. I've requested transfer to a training unit. I want to learn to teach operators the way you do, with respect, with understanding, with focus on making them better people as well as better warriors. That's a worthy goal." Reeves hesitated, then continued. "Ma'am, there's something else. Petty Officer Collins sends his regards. He completed the Special Warfare Combat Crewman Selection course last month. Top of his class. He said your example taught him that quiet competence was more valuable than loud confidence." The conversation reminded Maya of something her mother had often said. Influence spreads in ways you never expect. The lessons she'd learned on the Maine coast were now shaping operators across the Navy, creating ripples that would extend far beyond anything she could directly observe. As the sun set over the Pacific, Maya made her decision about the promotion and expanded role. She would accept, not because she craved recognition or authority, but because her country needed operators who understood that true strength came from integration, of technology and human capability, of different sensory inputs, of diverse perspectives, and of the courage to make difficult decisions under pressure. That night, she wrote a letter to her mother, as she did every year on the anniversary of her death. "Mom, remember how you used to say that the most important skill wasn't seeing in darkness but understanding what you were seeing? I finally understand what you meant. Teaching operators to integrate their senses, trust their instincts, and recognize when technology helps and when it hinders. That might be the most important lesson of all. The coastal lessons you taught me aren't just living on in me anymore. They're living on in every operator I train, and they'll live on in everyone those operators influence in turn. Your legacy isn't just in the lives I helped save during Broken Tide. It's in all the future missions that will succeed, because operators learn to truly see in darkness. I think you'd be proud of that." 6 months later, when the Navy officially announced the new Department of Advanced Sensory Integration and Environmental Adaptation, the press release included a quote from its director, Lieutenant Junior Grade Maya Reynolds. "Our goal isn't to create better technicians. It's to create better operators. Operators who understand that true effectiveness extends far beyond equipment mastery. It includes integration of all senses, precision in environmental adaptation, and wisdom in recognizing when technology enhances the mission and when human capability is the better solution. The quiet woman who had once been dismissed as just an equipment technician had become one of the most influential trainers in modern special operations. But she still began each day the same way she had at her previous command, with an equipment check conducted with reverence, standing straight and silent, honoring the tools that extended human capability. 1 year into directing the Department of Advanced Sensory Integration, Lieutenant Maya Reynolds faced her greatest challenge yet. The Naval Special Warfare Command had been tasked with developing a complete overhaul of their training protocols following a mission in which technological failures had contributed to the loss of 2 operators. The Pentagon wanted answers, and they wanted them quickly. "We're calling the initiative Project Nightwatch," Admiral Davidson explained during a secure video conference. The 4-star admiral rarely spoke directly to lieutenants, which underscored the gravity of the situation. Every piece of optical equipment, every training protocol, every operational assumption is being re-examined, and your department is at the center of it all. Maya sat in her office after the call, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about developing innovative training anymore. This was about fundamentally reshaping how America's most elite forces operated in low-visibility environments. Lives would depend on getting this right. "Lieutenant, you wanted to see me?" Commander Westbrook stood at her door. "Yes, ma'am. I'd like your input on something." Maya gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Project Nightwatch is going to require more than just technical solutions. We need to rethink our entire approach to human-technology integration." Westbrook nodded. "What are you proposing?" "A complete departure from our current model. Instead of training operators to use night vision as a primary tool with human senses as backup, we flip the paradigm. We train them to use their natural senses as primary, with technology as an enhancement." "That's radical, Reynolds. You're talking about undoing 50 years of special operations doctrine." "No, ma'am. I'm talking about returning to the fundamental truth that machines fail. Humans adapt." Over the next 3 months, Maya assembled a team that defied conventional military structures. She recruited not just special operators, but cognitive psychologists, sensory integration specialists, indigenous trackers, and even a blind martial arts instructor whose sensitivity to non-visual cues had made him legendary in close-quarters combat training. Their first prototype course was controversial from the start. It began with a full week during which participants used no optical technology whatsoever. They trained exclusively at night, learning to maximize their natural night vision, to interpret sounds with precision, to feel air movements that indicated obstacles or openings. "This is insane," muttered Lieutenant Commander Garcia, an experienced SEAL who had joined the course at his commanding officer's insistence. "We have billions in technology, and we're crawling around in the dark like cavemen." Maya overheard the comment but didn't respond directly. Instead, she adjusted the evening's exercise. The operators would navigate through an urban training facility with multiple hostile role players. Half the team would use night vision. Half would use only what they'd learned about natural sensory enhancement. The results shocked everyone except Maya. The technology-equipped operators moved faster but missed critical environmental cues. The cavemen moved more deliberately but identified 40% more potential threats and ambush points. When they debriefed, the pattern was clear. Technology created a false sense of security that actually increased vulnerability. "The gear makes you feel invincible," Maya explained afterward, "but it narrows your focus. You see what's directly in front of you in perfect clarity, but you lose peripheral awareness. You hear less because the equipment creates subtle noise. You feel less because your attention is directed through a single channel." Garcia approached her after the session, his earlier skepticism replaced with thoughtful consideration. "I've been operating with night vision for 15 years. I never realized how much I was missing." "Most people don't," Maya replied. "Until the moment when everything fails, and suddenly they're truly in the dark." As Project Nightwatch progressed, Maya incorporated increasingly challenging scenarios. Operators trained in environments with electromagnetic interference that degraded their equipment. They learned to recognize the moment when technology was becoming a liability rather than an asset. and to transition seamlessly between technology-enhanced and natural sensory operation. One evening, Admiral Hargrove visited unannounced during a training evolution. He stood beside Maya as they watched operators navigating a complex environment where certain zones rendered their equipment useless. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. Maya glanced at him, surprised. "You knew her?" Catherine Reynolds was one of the most gifted intelligence specialists I ever worked with. Her understanding of sensory intelligence gathering was decades ahead of its time. He smiled at Maya's expression. "Did you think your training with her was just a mother-daughter activity? She was preparing you even then." The revelation struck Maya like a physical blow. All those weekends on the Maine coast, all those exercises in darkness and silence, hadn't just been bonding experiences. They'd been professional training, deliberately structured to develop capabilities few people ever acquired. "She never told me. She wouldn't have." That was Catherine. Always focused on the mission, never on the recognition. Sound familiar? Maya fell silent, processing this new understanding of her childhood, her mother, and ultimately herself. After a long moment, she asked the question that had been haunting her since Broken Tide. "Did she know about my role in that operation?" Hargrove's expression softened. "She knew. She was critically ill by then, but I visited her personally to tell her what you'd accomplished. She said it was exactly what she expected from you. Excellence without fanfare." A mix of emotions washed through Maya: grief, pride, a renewed sense of purpose. Her work wasn't just her own mission anymore. It was a continuation of something her mother had begun years ago. "Admiral, I need to ask something. Was there more to her work than I've been told?" Hargrove considered her for a long moment. "There are still classified aspects of your mother's career, but I can tell you this. The protocols you're developing now aren't just similar to concepts she pioneered. In many ways, they're the fulfillment of theories she never had the chance to fully implement." The next morning, Maya found a sealed envelope on her desk marked Project LIGHTDANCE 1997 Catherine Reynolds. Inside was a faded document outlining a training methodology for operating without technological assistance in hostile environments. The theories were remarkably similar to what Maya had been developing independently. At the bottom was a handwritten note in Admiral Hargrove's precise script. "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Your mother laid the foundation. You're building the house." With renewed purpose, Maya expanded Project Nightwatch beyond its original scope. What had begun as a training overhaul became a comprehensive reevaluation of how special operators integrated with technology. Her team developed new protocols for seamless transitions between technology-assisted and natural operation. They created innovative training scenarios that deliberately introduced cascading equipment failures to build resilience and adaptability. 4 months into the project, they received their first real-world validation. A SEAL team operating in a remote environment experienced complete optical systems failure due to unexpected environmental conditions. Using the Nightwatch protocols, they successfully completed their mission without casualties, maintaining situational awareness through techniques Maya's department had developed. The team leader's after-action report was forwarded directly to her. "Nightwatch protocols saved lives tonight. When everything went dark, we didn't panic. We adapted." Those 12 words validated everything Maya had been working toward. But the true test was still to come. In a controversial move, the Naval Special Warfare Command decided to conduct a large-scale exercise pitting traditionally trained operators against those trained in Maya's integrated sensory approach. The scenario involved a complex hostage rescue in an environment with significant technological interference. The stakes were high. If Maya's methods proved substantially superior, they would become standard throughout special operations. If they failed, Project Nightwatch would likely be reduced to a niche training module rather than a fundamental shift in approach. The exercise was scheduled for 3 consecutive nights, with different teams rotating through identical scenarios. Traditional teams would go first, followed by teams trained in the new methodologies. On the first night, the conventional team performed admirably. Using cutting-edge night vision, thermal imaging, and tactical communications, they completed the mission in 47 minutes with 2 simulated casualties. "Solid performance," Admiral Davidson commented from the observation post. "That's about as good as it gets with current protocols." Maya watched intently, noting exactly where and how the team had relied on their technology, where they'd hesitated when signatures were unclear, how they'd moved through spaces as if tethered to their equipment. The second night, her integrated sensory team took the course. The difference was immediately apparent. These operators moved differently, more fluidly, more aware of their surroundings, less dependent on single-channel input. When they encountered zones of technological interference, they transitioned smoothly to natural sensory techniques without losing momentum. They completed the mission in 38 minutes with 0 casualties. Impressive, Davidson acknowledged. But we need to be sure this isn't just a statistical anomaly. The third night featured a hybrid team, half trained in conventional methods, half in Maya's integrated approach. What happened next became legend in special operations circles. Halfway through the exercise, the control team introduced an unexpected element, a complete electromagnetic pulse that rendered all optical and communications technology useless. The conventional operators were immediately compromised, their movements becoming hesitant, their situational awareness severely degraded. The Night Watch-trained operators immediately adapted, not just continuing their own operations, but actively guiding their conventional counterparts, teaching them in real time how to use environmental cues, sound direction, and tactile information to maintain effectiveness. They completed the mission in 42 minutes, slower than the pure Night Watch team but still faster than the conventional approach, with 0 casualties. In the debriefing that followed, even the most skeptical observers acknowledged the clear superiority of Maya's methodology. Project Night Watch wasn't just a marginal improvement, it was a paradigm shift that fundamentally changed how special operators functioned in low-visibility environments. Admiral Davidson made the announcement personally. Effective immediately, integrated sensory operations will become the standard protocol for all naval special warfare units. Lieutenant Reynolds' department will expand to accommodate training requirements across all special operations commands. That evening, Maya sat alone in her office, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. A training philosophy, born on the coast of Maine, refined through combat experience, and developed through rigorous experimentation, would now shape how America's most elite warriors operated in the world's most dangerous environments. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a Virginia area code she didn't recognize. Lieutenant Reynolds speaking. "Lieutenant, this is Secretary Walsh, the Secretary of the Navy." Maya sat up straighter despite being alone. "I've just reviewed the Night Watch exercise results. Remarkable work." "Thank you, sir. I'm calling because this goes beyond the Navy now. The other services have expressed interest in implementing your protocols. I'd like you to brief the Joint Chiefs next week." The request was unprecedented. Junior officers didn't brief the Joint Chiefs of Staff directly, unless something extraordinary was happening. "Of course, sir. I'd be honored." "One more thing, Reynolds. There's a promotion board convening next month. Your name will be on it. Commander Westbrook and Admiral Hargrove have both submitted recommendations. After what I've seen today, you have my support as well." After the call ended, Maya walked to the window overlooking the training grounds. Operators were conducting night exercises, some with technology, others using only natural sensory techniques. The integration of both approaches was creating something more effective than either alone, exactly what she had envisioned from the beginning. Her office door opened, and she turned to see Chief Ramirez standing there. "Ma'am, the night training cadre wanted you to have this." He handed her a simple plaque. Engraved on it was a quote, "In darkness, the truly skilled find clarity." "It's from all of us who've gone through your program," Ramirez explained, "because you taught us that our limitations were mostly in our minds." As Ramirez left, Maya placed the plaque on her desk beside the photo of her mother. The connection between past and present, between what Catherine Reynolds had begun and what Maya was continuing, felt tangible in that moment. The next morning brought another visitor, Commander Reeves, now assigned to the training directorate at Little Creek. Their previous encounter in Coronado had been the beginning of a cautious professional reconciliation. This meeting felt different. "Lieutenant Reynolds," he began, "I've been following Project Night Watch closely. What you've accomplished is nothing short of revolutionary. Thank you, Commander. I'm not here just to offer congratulations. I'm here to apologize again, more fully than before." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When I first met you, I saw only what I expected to see, just an equipment technician. I never looked deeper, never questioned my assumptions. And because of that, I missed the opportunity to learn from someone exceptional." Maya considered his words. Commander, we're all blind in different ways. Some of us can't see in darkness. Others can't see past their preconceptions. The important thing is learning to recognize our blindness and overcome it. That's precisely what makes your program so effective, isn't it? It's not just about operating without technology. It's about recognizing limitations in our equipment, in our training, in ourselves, and finding ways to transcend them. That's exactly right, Reeves nodded thoughtfully. The Navy's lucky to have you, Lieutenant. I suspect we've only begun to see the impact you'll have on how we train and operate. After he left, Maya returned to the draft presentation she was preparing for the Joint Chiefs. As she worked, a text message arrived from Olivia Morgan, now assigned to a specialized intelligence unit. Heard about Night Watch's success. No one deserves it more. You taught us all to see clearly. 2 weeks later, Maya stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon. As she presented the principles and results of Project Night Watch, she felt a profound sense of completing a circle. The lessons her mother had begun teaching her as a child on the Maine coast had evolved into a comprehensive methodology that would now shape military operations at the highest levels. The fundamental principle is straightforward, she explained. Technology enhances capability, but dependency on technology creates vulnerability. By training operators to seamlessly integrate natural sensory awareness with technological assistance, we create warriors who can function effectively in any environment, under any conditions. The questions that followed were incisive, as one would expect from the nation's top military leaders, but underlying the technical inquiries was a clear recognition. This young lieutenant had developed something that would save lives and enhance operational effectiveness across the entire special operations community. After the briefing, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs approached her personally. Lieutenant Reynolds, that was one of the most impressive presentations I've seen in this room. Your mother would be extraordinarily proud. The comment caught her off guard. Sir, you knew my mother as well? He smiled. Catherine and I worked together on several classified projects in the 90s. Her ideas were ahead of their time then. You've brought them to fruition now. That's a remarkable legacy. On the flight back to California, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought her to this point. From being dismissed as just an equipment technician to briefing the Joint Chiefs on a methodology that would transform special operations, the path had been neither straight nor easy. But perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. True value rarely announced itself with fanfare. It revealed itself through consistent excellence, through quiet competence, through the willingness to serve without recognition until the moment when that service became exactly what was needed. 2 months later, Maya received her promotion to lieutenant commander along with a new assignment, director of the newly established Joint Special Operations Sensory Integration Center. The facility would bring together specialists from across the military to further develop and refine the methodologies she had pioneered. The day she assumed command, Admiral Hargrove attended the small ceremony. Afterward, he handed her a sealed envelope. Your mother left this with me years ago, with instructions to give it to you when you were ready. I think that time has come. Alone in her office, Maya opened the envelope to find a handwritten letter dated shortly before her mother's death. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then you've discovered your true path, not just as a warfighter, but as someone who transforms how we fight. The lessons we practiced on those Maine shorelines weren't random. They were deliberate preparation for what I hoped you might one day become. True vision isn't just about seeing in darkness. It's about seeing possibilities where others see only limitations. It's about recognizing that human potential, properly cultivated, will always transcend technological dependency. I've watched you grow from a curious child into a woman of extraordinary capability. But your greatest strength has never been your technical skill. It's been your understanding that equipment serves the operator, never the reverse. Whatever you've accomplished to receive this letter, know that it's just the beginning. Continue to question assumptions. Continue to value human capability alongside technological advancement. Continue to teach others that true strength comes from within, not from the tools we carry. I am so very proud of you, my remarkable daughter. You see clearly, in every sense of the word. With all my love, Mom. Maya carefully refolded the letter, tears blurring her vision. The connection between past and present, between mother and daughter, between what had begun on the Maine coast and what was now transforming military operations worldwide, felt complete. The next morning, She stood before the first class of instructors who would help disseminate the integrated sensory operations methodology throughout the special operations community. As she looked at their faces, experienced operators, intelligence specialists, training experts, she saw the future of American special operations taking shape. "We're not here to teach you to distrust technology," she began. "We're here to teach you to trust yourselves first. Your equipment may fail. Your training never will." As the weeks passed, reports filtered in from units already implementing her protocols. Operational effectiveness was increasing. Mission completion rates were rising. Most importantly, casualty rates were falling. Operators trained in integrated sensory methods were making better decisions, adapting more quickly to changing conditions, and maintaining effectiveness even when their technology failed. One evening, as Maya observed a nighttime training exercise, Admiral Davidson joined her on the observation platform. "You've started something remarkable here, Commander Reynolds. Something that will save countless lives in the years to come." "Thank you, sir. But I didn't start it. I'm just continuing what my mother began." "That may be true, but you've taken it further than she ever could. That's how progress works, each generation building on the foundation laid by those who came before." Maya watched as the operators below moved through the darkness, some using night vision, others using only their natural senses, all of them integrating both approaches into a seamless methodology that made them more effective than either approach alone. "The true strength of America's Special Operations Forces has never been our technology," Davidson continued. "It's always been our people, their adaptability, their resilience, their refusal to accept defeat. What you've done is remind us of that essential truth." As they stood in comfortable silence, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From being dismissed as just an equipment technician to transforming how America's most elite warriors operated, the path had been unexpected, but, in retrospect, almost inevitable. Some heroes charge into battle with advanced technology and overwhelming force. Others stand quietly in equipment rooms, maintaining gear and waiting for the moment when their unique gifts are needed. Both kinds of heroes serve with honor. Both kinds of heroes make their country proud. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, both kinds of heroes get to see the lasting impact of lessons learned from a visionary parent who understood that true strength always comes from within, not from the tools we carry. Excellence doesn't need to announce itself. It simply needs to be ready when called upon. And in that readiness lies not just personal achievement, but the opportunity to transform how others see the world, both literally and figuratively, in ways that echo far beyond any single mission or moment. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become part of our Everyday Heroes community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.